Hey, it's Casey here. Today I have a project to show you how you can add a pocket to a regular t-shirt. You're going to need a t-shirt, some fabric, thread. You will need to pull your iron out for this, and then also a pocket pattern, which you can download from the blog. So to get started, you'll want to print the template and cut those out. There are two pieces to that. There is a fold guide and a cut guide. The fold guide is the shape of the pocket when everything is finished and sewn, and then the cut guide is allowing for your extra seams. So to make sure you get what you want on the front of your pocket, use your fold guide to place on your fabric and know exactly where you want, what part of the pattern you want showing. And then place your cut guide on top of that and just look through the paper and line it up as best as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to be able to allow for anything that's a little bit off later, but do your best to line that up. And once you have all of that lined up, take a pencil or a pen and trace around that. And there you have your pocket. So now we're going to cut that out. I don't know about you, but I can never seem to find good scissors that'll cut everything. So had to switch my scissors there. But you're going to want to cut this out. And once it's cut, you'll have a bigger version of a pocket. And we'll start with the next steps. But this pocket is really easy to cut. It's all straight lines. Just cut as close as you can to your trace line, and it'll all come out really nicely in the end. I do like how forgiving this pattern is and how forgiving this project in general can be. Okay, so now that we have our pocket, we are going to use that fold guide and do a little bit of ironing. So flip your fabric over. You want the front side of the fabric facing down. Again, just as best as you possibly can, line that fold guide up in the center of the fabric. And then you just simply fold the fabric over the top of the paper. You just want to fold it all the way around and then iron that in place. You're going to be left with about 1/4 of an inch seam all the way around. The little point can get a little tricky at times, but just make sure you have really good really good ironed seams leading up to that, and then in the end, it'll turn out just fine. I'm taking a couple of extra minutes here just to make sure that I actually have it all lined up right, because I didn't want it to end up wonky, but it really didn't. It really was fine. I was doing just fine. So this isn't a fussy kind of project. Okay, so now that I have all of my seams all ironed down, you can see exactly where your pocket is. So at this point, if you're looking at it and you're like, oh, well, I chopped off a whole big flower that I wanted to keep, go back and recut. Hopefully you have some more of that fabric. So here I am ironing again that very top part of the pocket. And this next little step, you can actually skip it if you don't care if your pocket is usable. So I actually in the beginning was planning on just sewing all the way around it and not worrying about it being a usable pocket, but as I was kind of working through this, I was like, no, I actually think it'll look really cute if you can actually use it as a pocket. So if you want to use it as a pocket, or at least have that functionality, you'll want to sew the top seam first. So we're still not working on our t-shirt at all. And the type of the type of stitch that we are using here is called a back stitch. And that simply means that you are going to go through the hole at the front. You're going to go make a hole. You're going to go back to the very end of the last stitch and then go back above it. So I know that's kind of hard to explain, but hopefully in this video, if you make it full screen, you should be able to see it. And I actually have a little bit later where it's a little bit bigger where you can see it as well. But that's what it's called. It's called a back stitch. And I actually did this project first using a running stitch. I did the whole project actually doing a running stitch, and when it was finished, it didn't feel finished enough. So I took it all out and went back and did the back stitch. So I think it makes it look a lot more finished. It looks similar to what you would see on a sewing machine. And when you see my finished project, you will see that my stitches are not perfectly aligned. And in the end, I really kind of liked it. I liked that it looked handmade, but it just looked kind of quirky and fun. And I will note here that I am pulling the thread pretty tightly, and it sometimes causes the fabric to bunch a little bit, so that's when you see me kind of pull the fabric. So I do a couple of stitches, I pull the thread a little tightly, and then I go back and I pull the fabric apart a little more, and that's just so that I can get the best, tightest stitches that are flat. If you don't, you may have some stitches that just look a little loose. I still, even doing this, I didn't do it consistently enough, and I did end up with some stitches in the end that were a little loose, but it really didn't bother me. If it bothers you, you can certainly be a little more careful with this to make sure that everything is pulled tightly. And of course, when you're using lots of thread, long pieces of thread, it's going to wind around everything. And see, once you kind of get the hang of it, like it honestly took me several stitches to get a feel for exactly how I wanted to do it. And here I'm going a little bit faster because I do actually kind of have a rhythm. Even though I'm kind of going off camera a tiny bit, you can still tell that I've actually kind of gotten into a rhythm. I think there's one last stitch here. There we go. I'm just making sure everything is lined up. And you can see on the front and on the back, it's a full line of stitches. There's no gaps. I'm just taking some time to make sure it's all nice and secure. Don't want it to fall apart. Okay, so now we're going to start attaching everything to the t-shirt. So I'm just getting some more thread here to do that. And I will go ahead and warn you that this video does cut off a little bit at the end because I actually poked myself and started bleeding in the middle of the project. So there was a little blood loss in this project, but all's good. So I had to stop and take care of that, and then I didn't cut the video back on, but you still get the point because I'm showing you how to do that back stitch, and that is all I did with this. I simply did a back stitch through the entire project. So here I've got my pins. This is an important part just to make sure that everything stays in place. And with my t-shirt, because I had lines, I wanted it to be straight, because if it wasn't, if the pocket was sewn on at a crooked angle, you would have definitely seen it. And I will also mention here that before I started pinning this on, I tried the t-shirt on with the pocket and kind of placed it where I felt like I wanted it, and I had an idea of it, and I was able to count the stripes to know, okay, well, I want it one stripe down from where the V-neck part ends. So I used that as a guide. So I encourage you, try the t-shirt on, put the pocket where you want it, find a way to mark it on the t-shirt so that you have an idea of exactly where it needs to be placed, and it'll make things a lot easier. So I was just pointing out to you there, I decided that my plan was to be able to go around this whole thing with one piece of thread and not have to change anything, but of course, not everything happens the way you want it to. So I'm just starting at the top on one side, and I will go around and end at the top on the other side. I do have to add some more thread throughout this because I had to stop, and then I also ended up sewing a tiny bit of the shirt underneath into the pocket so I could kind of, like, I was trying to lay the shirt out flat, and I was like, why is this not laying out flat? And I flip it over and realized I had sewn a little bit of the shirt into the pocket, so I had to go back and take some of those stitches out. And that kind of stuff happens, and you just have to work around it and keep going. But all in all, this is a quick project. So you can see here, I'm not ever reaching for the needle underneath. And I think, honestly, that's partially, I think, when I poked myself. I was trying to kind of make a turn, and I ended up poking myself. But if you are pushing it through, go into the end of your last stitch, and then with the same movement, go under and push up. You can see there the needle came out the top. So I went all the way through, and you end up with a lot more thread on the back, but the front side looks nice and clean. And there again, I'm pulling the thread a little bit and now stretching the fabric back out. And the t-shirt is a really stretchy fabric too, so I'm trying not to stretch it too much, and I'm trying just to make sure everything is aligned. But the pins help with that. Here is a photo of the finished t-shirt with me wearing it, and you can kind of see how it's all placed. And then here is a photo of the finished stitching. You can see it's not perfect, but it looks really good. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to post those in the comments below, and I will be sure to answer them. Thanks, and have a great day.